Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to CircuitStream's VR Driving Simulator Workshop. I was almost a minute late getting things started here. Full disclosure, I did have to hold back a sneeze. That's why we were late getting started. We just hit 3:01 right now here on the East Coast, so we are all good to go. Team in the audience, before I proceed any further, as with all workshops, can you please let me know in the chat on the right of your screen, can you hear me? Can you see me? How's the audio? Are we all good? Usman, Elaine, thank you. Shruti, Elias, great to see you. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad you could make it out. Awesome. Everyone, thank you for letting me know. I would hate to get halfway through my presentation to find out that nobody could hear me, so I really do appreciate it. I've got a couple of housekeeping items that I want to go over with everybody before we kick things off today. But once again, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're so excited to have you and would love to teach you some things about how to build your own VR driving simulator within Unity. We've got that joke up there, never fail your driving test. Again, please don't use this to study for a driver's test. This is all for educational purposes, just stating the obvious. You never know. But anyways, let's move on to the housekeeping stuff. So you've all already discovered on the right of your screen the chat tab. If you want to network with some of the folks in the audience today, drop your LinkedIn, ask questions, do all that fun stuff. Please feel free to go ahead and network. That's what we're here for. We're all like-minded individuals, passionate about this technology, and potentially exploring it for the first time. At the top of the chat tab, so very top right of your screen there's a few other tabs that I want you to pay attention to. The first is the questions tab. We've got a large audience today, over 500 people signed up to be here this afternoon. So to help us keep on top of all of these questions, if you do have questions throughout the webinar, please navigate to the questions tab first and drop them in there. That'll allow us to stay on top of things and to stay on schedule, as we do have a pretty packed workshop for today. Also, beside the questions tab, we've got the polls tab. Periodically, and I will provide warning, we are going to drop in some polls just to gauge the audience, see where everybody's at with their skill sets, what devices they've got, that type of thing. So when I give you the warning to drop a poll or to check a poll out, please navigate up there to the polls section, and I'll publish them, and that'll be super helpful for us. So thank you in advance. Last thing, we are going to be recording this webinar. So for those of you who might be tuning in internationally, have work meetings, whatever the case might be, we will be recording this webinar and sending it out to everybody who signed up to be here. And we will also be sending out the project files that my colleague Usman is going to be demonstrating in just a few minutes here as well. We typically recommend that for these workshops, for the live session, you just watch, be an active listener, ask questions, and really understand the process. If you do want to try following along, feel free, but keep in mind that we are going to be sending out the assets and the recording afterwards. Okay, in terms of an agenda today, I'm your host. My name is Kyle. I'm going to do some introductions in a second here. I'm going to take about 10 minutes to set the stage for the workshop today before passing things off to my colleague Usman. His presentation is going to take about 45 minutes. Following that 45-minute technical demonstration, I'm going to come back on and wrap things up before re-inviting Usman back on stage to do an in-depth Q&A session for all of your beautiful questions. So without further ado, let's get rolling. Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Nichols, and I am the education lead here at CircuitStream. I handle the admissions and some of these workshops, and I also do some consulting work for the team here at CircuitStream. I bring about 3 years of professional experience spanning the professional sports and technology scene. Prior to working at CircuitStream, I did have the pleasure of working with the professional sports teams here in Toronto. And yes, I did have the pleasure, or I do have the pleasure of being able to say that I am an NBA champion, which is a fun fact that I love to share about myself every single workshop. No, I was not a player. I am far too short and I have no athletic abilities, at least on the basketball court anyways. So really cool, but not a player. I've already mentioned Ozzy a couple times as well. So Usman, we call him Ozzy. He's going to be running you through the technical demonstration here today. Ozzy is one of our lead instructors and developers here at CircuitStream. He brings an absolute wealth of experience to the table here. He's got over 10 years of experience developing in Unity and 7-8 years of developing specifically XR content within Unity. Fun fact about Ozzy, he is absolutely one of the best musicians I've ever met in my entire life. He's got an entire studio at his place in Calgary, and he's particularly passionate about the drums, pardon me. So if you've got any musicians or drummers in the audience today, give Ozzy a shout. I'm sure he would love to chat all things music with you. Moving on, who is CircuitStream? Who are we? Well, we're a Canadian company that was founded in 2015 when we noticed a gap in the personalized training and education spaces. To date, we've had over 35,000 individual learners who we've taught how to build, manage, and scale VR and AR content. Today, we're a team of about 20 experts coming from all over the world from different backgrounds to teach folks of all skill levels about the value of this technology and how to get started by building your own applications. Speaking of Unity, CircuitStream is a Unity certified training partner, and training partners are approved based on their expertise, their focus on quality education, and their commitment to providing the highest level of training available. We strategically partner with Unity to collaborate on creating new educational training content of the highest quality for people of all skill levels from all parts of the globe. So above all else, we're an educational company. And as you can see here on screen, we've had the pleasure of working with some of the world's largest and most exciting organizations. Given how quickly the world of VR and AR is accelerating, these companies are taking notice and beginning to innovate with this technologies. And for us, it's been a privilege to be able to work alongside them and an honor to teach members of their companies how to build this content from scratch. So how does this all manifest itself? Well, we've got an academic portfolio of free online workshops and webinars like today, and also a variety of courses that we offer, which are all designed to help students learn how to build VR and AR content in the Unity engine. These courses are mainly for beginners, but we do also offer a more intermediate or advanced course for folks who are already proficient in Unity and in programming with C#. These are our two main flagship courses here on screen, and we break down all of our courses into two main categories. On the one hand, we've got full courses, and on the other, what we call short courses. When I say full courses, I mean that in addition to the live, part-time, and online lessons built into each program, students also get weekly one-to-one time with an expert, just like Ozzy, to work on a personal project that you are passionate about. Both of these courses here on screen are these flagship programs and are full courses. It's important to note that what we're teaching you in these two courses in particular aren't unique to any one platform or one headset. So we're teaching you a collection of fundamental skills and best practices that are generally applicable to any headset on the market. The short courses, which I'll speak about in a minute or two, are different in that we are teaching for specific learning goals or specific learning outcomes. On the left of the screen here, the XR Development with Unity course is the beginner-friendly 10-week program designed to get you prototyping your own content from scratch. The XR Project Accelerator course, on the other hand, is more intermediate or advanced for folks who already have that fundamental skill set and those beginner best practices in coding with C#. This course is all about taking an existing prototype or use case that you've got and taking it to the next level. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on these programs right now, but after Ozzy's presentation, I will go through each of them in a little bit greater detail. You might be asking yourself, what's the thing that differentiates us from some of the other educational mechanisms out there? YouTube, Udemy. It's really the one-to-one support that's included in and after our programs. We fundamentally believe that the best way to learn something new is to get hands-on and build your very own prototype with the help of an expert that will meet with you every week. Having the opportunity to work on your very own project or portfolio work is a major benefit, and that's what our students love most about learning with us. We do also offer one-to-one training packages with our instructors if you want to spend some time with us working on your particular use case without a preset curriculum. Now, I did mention these individual courses or short courses. These are a great complement to both of our full courses. Just like the XR Development with Unity program, these are taught part-time and completely live and online and remain beginner-friendly, just like the XR Development with Unity course. Unlike that course, however, the curriculum here targets more specific learning areas that are really, really important for beginners to know, or might be of specific interest depending on what it is that you're hoping to gain from your learning experience. Again, I don't want to dive into this too much right now. I will speak about them again later on in today's workshop. But for now, just know that we recommend pairing these courses up with our beginner-friendly 10-week course to help you further accelerate your learning, but know that you can also take these as standalone courses. Now, not to be forgotten is our team training opportunities. If your company is considering investing in VR and AR technologies, or is looking to have a group of folks upskill in this space together, we would love to work with you to create a customized training program designed to suit your specific needs and challenges. These bootcamp style sessions are great because they teach specifically what you need to learn to maximize the value of your investment and your innovation with this technology. Recently, we've had the pleasure of working with organizations like the US Navy, Walmart, VMware, and then just last month, BMW. Okay, great. Now that you've learned a little bit about us, let's talk briefly about Unity. I've already mentioned Unity quite a few times today, but I want to be sure that we're all up to speed. Give me just a second here. I am going to post a couple polls. So this would be the first poll. So please head on over to the polls tab, and I am going to publish the first one. We always like to ask this question to help us gauge where the audience is at. So what I want to know is, on a scale from 0 to 10, how much experience do you have with Unity? Let's see what we got. Okay, so we've got a few more advanced folks today, but we've got mainly a beginner audience. It appears that for a lot of you, this might be your first time actually seeing Unity, and we've got a number of people who would label themselves as that 1 to 2, possibly 3 category as well. Okay, great. For the beginners in the audience, what is Unity? Well, Unity is a free 3D development engine that can be used to build games, simulations, and experiences. It is definitely our engine of choice and one of the largest engines in the world to begin creating your own VR or AR content. And for those of you who aren't aware, XR just stands for extended reality, and it's an umbrella term that refers to VR, AR, and mixed reality, or MR as well. So when we say XR, we just mean the whole shebang, all of the realities out there that we refer to. So how does one actually use and leverage Unity to bring an idea to life? Well, like anything, these applications all start with an idea. From there, you need to build your assets and bring them into Unity to create immersive interactions using scripting in the C# programming language. Today is going to be a little bit different in that we are going to be using the XR Interactions Toolkit package. And this is an asset package that you can download within Unity, and it's got a series of preset scripts that you can leverage to make your job as the developer more efficient. It's almost like you don't need to code anything at all by using this asset package. Now, despite how wonderful this might sound, we do typically recommend that all developers, designers, 3D modelers, and artists have at the very least some basic skills in C# so that you're not being limited by this tool. Once you're happy with the build that you've put together in Unity, you need to leverage what's called an SDK, and that stands for a software development kit. And effectively what this does is it verifies that your target headset or your target device is capable of hosting your application. I always like to describe it as a funnel. Picture building something in Unity, and when you're exporting it, you need to put it through this funnel to make sure that you're able to host it on your app. Once you've done that, you can render and publish your app, and voila, you've got an experience that you can use on any device that you might have today. Now, what are we going to learn today? Well, Ozzy's going to take over in just a minute here, and he's going to teach you how to set up your very own VR rig using the XR Interactions Toolkit package. He's going to talk about distinguishing between floor level and eye level perspectives and why that's important in our application. We'll also program how to build a VR steering wheel and build that interaction and make it work using XRTK, and then also how to create an acceleration of a vehicle in VR. So without further ado, today is an intro to VR driving simulators. I'd like to invite Ozzy up on stage at this point. Ozzy, please come up on board and take things over. We're so excited to have Ozzy here with us today. So everyone in the audience, there you go. He's got the big boom headset on already. Ozzy, take it away, my man. All yours.
Thank you very much, Kyle. I'll start sharing my screen here as well. Let's see if I can bring that up. Drum solo, thank you. And there it is. My screen is sharing. Hi, everyone. Kyle's already introduced me. It's always fun to host some of these workshops and love answering all of these questions. And yes, Diego, we will be using the XR Interaction Toolkit. We like using the OpenVR system as well, so you can definitely learn both. Voice of Silk. Thank you, Alex. All right, so let's take a look at what this end product is really going to look like today, and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to pull up my window here. Just quickly shape these up enough. So hopefully you guys can see that all right. On the left here, where you're seeing some movement, that is my scene view. That is what I'd see as a developer. I'm just going to open up pointer focus here. And on the right here, I have my game view. This is what the user, the player of your application would see. So let's say I can hit play here. And I've got my controllers ready to go. All right. So as you can see, nice little steering wheel is what we're going for. And if I press the trigger, I start accelerating. Oh, I forgot I turned my steering wheel quite a bit to the right. It's usually not the case in real life, don't worry. And then left trigger comes to a full stop. And then you can kind of control the speed based on how long you're holding the trigger. So try to make it fairly simple, not too much stuff to it. And you can just kind of drive around. You should always shoulder check whenever you can and all that stuff. Don't worry, my actual driver's license went really well. Okay. And this, where I'm in right now, is just a simple city asset that I got from Unity's asset store. I would not have had time to make this, obviously. But yeah, so that's what we're going to go with for now. There we go. All right. Clutch and rip the handbrake. Well, there's a lot of interactions you can definitely add. And then in the class, we do go over making some more kind of interactable things in Unity, such as, well, the dial is there, the levers, the tilting levers, the notched levers, and yeah, all sorts of things. But today I tried to make a simple version of a steering wheel to interact with that. And we'll take a look at how that's set up as well. Did some very basic input from the new input system that Unity's created with the action-based VR rigs. Now, my understanding is quite a few people come in and they're brand new, so I'll try and stay. I love the Fujiwari tofu. Yeah. So just a nice, simple car model that I got. It was fitting for the environment I'm in, I thought. But there we go. So we'll take a look at how the steering wheel is set up. We'll take a look at how to set up our rig here so that we are in VR. And we'll take a look at using the input from our controllers to accelerate and brake. So with all that said, let's jump right in. So I'm going to just quickly go over as if it's a new scene, new project. Kind of start from scratch, so to speak. Okay, so once we are in our project, I've started a project in a Unity 2019.4, etc. version. If you have Unity 2019.4, you should have no issues. Logitech driving for steering wheel control. Would it be useful as a controller in VR? Make things harder for the user as he's using the goggles. I'm not sure what you mean by goggles, but in our office we actually have a steering wheel for our VR racing games, so it works great. Yes, the recording will be available it will literally actually play right after our session ends. The recording will start playing, and you can keep this link for coming back to it. So bookmark it or save it. All right. So let's imagine we have a brand new project here. I'm going to go back to the default layout that you might come across, and just going to add something in here. Let me get rid of that. There we go. So when you open up your brand new Unity project, you're going to want to get the Unity Hub. This is the thing you come with. You go to installs, you install your version of Unity by clicking on add. You want the Unity 2019.4 version. Anyways, let's assume you guys have done that for now. But basic thing is you've gone to Unity's website, you've downloaded the Unity Hub. Unity Hub, you have your installs option here. If you only got the hub and you didn't choose a version of Unity, you can then go to add. And for this workshop, I'll be using Unity 2019.4.2. Well, I'm using 0.1, but it should work the same. Because of the LTS versions, long-term service, they don't really have that available for 2020 quite yet. So I'll leave that be. Now, in our projects for Unity Hub, to start a new project, I would go to, I don't know why there's two of these. That's no bueno. Okay. So here I would start a new project, click on this little drop down and select my Unity 2019.4 version. And when I do that, I get to, choose what kind of project I'm going in. You may be able to get away with using the universal render pipeline, make some things look a little cooler, have some different effects. I'm just going to stick with 3D for now, just to keep it simple. You can rename your project and choose where it is you want to place your project, and then you'd create. And then it would be listed here, but Unity Hub would close as the project opens. Now, when you open your project for the first time, you're unlikely to see these folders here. You might see a scenes folder with a scene file in it. And let's talk about Unity now. So you're seeing this big interface. What you're seeing in the middle, once again, is what the developer sees as they're editing their world. Now, it may be possible that your scene tab is actually currently on the game tab. The game tab, once again, this is what the user of the application sees. The scene tab is what the editor, the developer, what they see. Obviously, they can see both, but this is exclusive to them. And then we have our asset store where we can get our nice car models. And you can also get the city environment that I got and place your car there or really anywhere. You can also use different car models if you like. That's up to you. So that's these tabs here. On the left, I have my hierarchy window, which just tells me lists off all the objects, game objects to be precise, in my current scene. Right now, all I have is a camera and my sun, my directional light. So those are the only two things listed. If I select one of them, you'll see on the far right side of my screen is the inspector window, which tells me about that particular object, namely all of its components and the properties of those components, such as the light component for my directional light and the camera component for my camera. Now, by default, this isn't really going to be a VR scene, right? This is just going to be a regular app, kind of boring in my mind now. Only excites me as VR. All right, so with those tabs explained, at the bottom here, I have my project window. This is going to be storing all the files for our app, such as the scripts, the sound files, the 3D models, all those kinds of things will be stored in here. And you have a console window as well. This tells you about all the errors and warnings that you may come across. Okay, so that's that. Now, let's take a look at the steps to make our scene first VR capable. using the new XR Interaction Toolkit and the new input action system. So let's take a look at the top here. We'd go to Window at the top and go down to Package Manager. Once we've arrived at the Package Manager, we'd want to install this XR Interaction Toolkit. However, that won't actually appear for you by default. You have to make sure that you are in the Unity registry, so you can see all of Unity's packages. Make sure you're there. And then in the advanced section, you have to make sure you're able to see preview packages. And then you'll be able to find this XR Interaction Toolkit listed. You could obviously search for it up here as well. A little search bar. Now, once you've found it, don't install it right away. I want you to click on the drop down, see all versions, and I want to make sure you've selected 1.0. 0.10, not what we're looking for. So 1.0 is their latest release. It's finalized. It's finalized in a way. Okay, so once you've selected that, we click on Update to or Install. Install should be the option initially. But yeah, so click on the drop-down, select this, hit Install. Now, once you've installed it, when you create your XR rig, you'll notice that there's a lot of input mapping you'll need to do. You'll have to set up the control scheme for a lot of things and whatnot. I got lost too. Where you went to find the toolkit. Okay, so to get to this point, I went to Window at the top of Unity, went down to Package Manager. Once I'm in the Package Manager, this window appears, and you want to make sure you click at the top left here, Unity Registry, and where it says Advanced, you want to click there and say Show Preview Packages. With those two steps, you can then scroll here and find the XR Interaction Toolkit. Keep in mind that there's a little bit of a delay. It loads after a few seconds, and then you should be able to find it. You can also just search for Toolkit, and this is probably the only thing you'll see. And then once you found it, make sure you click on the drop-down, see all versions, and install 1.0 to get the latest version. Now, once you've got that installed, there is the option to import the default input actions. And I'd highly recommend doing that because it'll save you a lot of time. And if you want to use the emulator, feel free to get that in there as well. But there you go. So you want to import the default interactions. Mine says update, but I've already got it in the project to save time. All right, so with that done, let's take a look at the next steps. You're welcome, Rudy. So we've got our packages into Unity. Let's take a look at what we need to do next. So we'd want to be able to make those actions that we've imported the default. We've imported them, but they're not actually the default actions quite yet. If we go to our samples folder, because that's what you've imported when you did that, go into the samples folder, XR Interaction Toolkit folder, 1.0 pre, and then defaults input actions. It's just navigating through all those folders, and you'll come to this here. And what here is if you select this one, you don't have to do this part, but if you take a look, double clicking on this one, you'll see the default input actions window here. And you can edit these and add more actions, such as if I was to select the right hand, for example, I add an action. My new action is named, grip held. For example, you don't have to do this stuff. I'm just quickly showing you here. Grip held. And, I decide that this is a value and it's an axis type. So I'm squeezing it and all this stuff. Don't worry too much about it. If you're more experienced with Unity, this will make more sense to you. Add axis IDs and, actually, let me remove that one actually. You'd select where it says no binding, you choose your path, and you can choose any kind of input, including Xbox controllers, for example. And so here I would go to XR controller, and then I would choose explicitly, in this case, the right hand, and then I can choose optional controls and add something like my grip pressed or my grip value. How much am I squeezing my grip? Those kinds of things. But those are inputs that you can add to this new system Unity's created. But here we already have this. The names for what you're looking for isn't maybe exact, but the activate action is the trigger being pressed. That's the one we're going to be using. Anyways, so that's just what that is. I don't have an XR Interaction Toolkit in my packages. Why would that be? I'm running. So make sure that when you're in the package manager, you've got the Unity registry selected, and then in your advanced, you made sure that you are showing preview packages. Okay. You may need to import it through a Git, but I am using 2019.4.1. Okay, now with that said, XRI default input actions are there, but what we need to do is select these two guys here. So we got the default left controller preset and the right controller preset. I want you to select one of those and click up here where it says to make them the default action-based controller. There'll be a default setting option here, so you can make them default. Same thing with this one. You'll want to click there, make sure they are the default values. Once you've done that, you can go up to the top left, click on Edit, go to Project Settings. I do not see that folder. Which folder, Rudy? Now, once you've done that, we go to Edit, Project Settings, and you'll see the Preset Manager. Once you go to the Preset Manager, you should see these two things listed that you just made into defaults. Those two things listed here now. And I would just say name them left and right as they are identified, so they're searchable later. That would be good to do. Now, that step is done. Obviously, I'm going a little faster than the speed required to follow along during the presentation, so don't worry if you fall behind. The samples to toolkits. So if you don't see the samples folder, when you have gone to Window, Package Manager, oh, wrong one there, Window, Package Manager, and you've imported the XR Interaction Toolkit, you downloaded 1.0, there is the default input actions. Make sure to import those, and then you'll see the samples folder, Rudy. All right. Now we're in the preset manager. We've named these from Edit, Project Settings, Preset Manager. These are here now because we made those two things default, which I did by selecting this, clicking there, selecting this, clicking there where it says default. Okay, Preset Manager is good. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our XR plugin management here at the bottom. You'll see a button to install your packages. You click on that. It'll take a second and then show you the option to enable Oculus Windows Mixed Reality. If you go to the Android section, you can enable Oculus there as well. You need this so that you can build onto your Quest or your Oculus Rift or Windows Mixed Reality, these kinds of devices. You need them. You need this to build onto them. Okay, so we've got that in there as well. We are looking good. Now, we can set up our scene. If we go back to our scene view, we'll see that we have a regular camera here. Let's get rid of that. To delete. There we go. So get rid of the main camera. Once again, I did that by selecting this camera, right-clicking on it and pressing delete. It's gone. Going to right-click in here, go down to XR, and we're going to get a room scale action-based VR rig, or XR rig as they like to call it. Bring that in there, and bam, I've got a VR rig set up. If I click on this drop down here, you can see how there is a hierarchy in my hierarchy window where I have this kind of parent-child relationship formed where this is the parent of this camera offset. Camera offset is the parent for the main camera, left-hand controller, right-hand controller. These are siblings, as it were. Anyways, those are the three components I need for my VR rig. And as you can see, if I select one of these controllers, all the default inputs are listed here. Fortunately for us, all these are listed. If you skipped those steps, these would be blank and you would have to enable and reference each of these yourself. So that definitely saves us a lot of time. But now I'm going to save my scene. I'm going to hit play and try this out. I've got my headset plugged in, so you can see that that's working. Oh, let me get out of this thing here. Wait just a second. Right, one last thing. So it's almost ready. We need one more thing in our scene. If I go to the XR rig, I should add a input action manager component, this script, into my scene. If I click there, you'll see that there's an action assets section here. Size is 0. I would just drag and drop my left-hand controller, or I should say, not my left-hand controller, but this thing. In my projects window, I have the default input actions, this little setup here, the input actions file. I go to my XR rig. I've created my input action manager. I drag and drop this into here such that it knows what kind of inputs it's looking for. Nope, dropped my controller. 1 second. There we go. Okay, so now that I've done that, saving my scene, I hit play. Let's check it out. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. And you can see I have my VR scene set up. The default are these laser pointers that you can kind of point in any given direction. And the idea is that they're pointer interactors. So you can set up your scene differently. And if you see some of our other workshops, we use these laser pointers to do things. But today, we don't need to point and click. We need to touch the wheel, spin it, and pull our triggers to accelerate and decelerate. That would be the idea. Yes, Kristen, yes, definitely we will be disabling those. That would be incredibly annoying to have in our driving sim. Okay, so we've got our XR input manager there. We've got our left controller and right controller. However, all that's representing them are these lines that are kind of offset from our hand, actually. They don't even appear at our hand. They're a little bit forward. So what do we need to do next? Let's select our controller. So I'm going to click on the left-hand controller. I'm going to hold the control key or the command key if you're using a Mac. Select the other controller as well. We have a question that says, does this work without the VR glasses that you wear? So this thing in particular wouldn't, but there's a VR simulator that you can import with the package. If you go to Window Package Manager, you'll see that there's an XR device simulator you can import to your project as well. I would look into that, Nick, if you really want to do it that way instead. But I won't have time to cover that as well. Okay, now with that said, what we'll do here is change the representation of our controllers. So instead of the lines, if you see I've selected both these controllers, I have a bunch of things here in my inspector window. If I scroll up and down, the XR controller, action-based. This is great for all the inputs we want. And if we scroll down, we have the XR ray interactor. Well, we don't need to point and click at anything. We have a line renderer. We don't need to point. We don't need a visual for our line. So I'm actually going to go through and remove these components. I'm going to click on these 3 dots at the top right of my XR ray interactor, remove that component. My line renderer, right click there, remove that component, but I can't because the XR interactor line visual needs a line renderer. So I'm going to remove this one first, remove component, and then finally remove my line renderer component. There we go. So I've selected my controllers. All I'm left with is the XR controller action-based script attached to these 2 game objects, right? This would work with the Oculus Quest 2? Yes, it will. Exactly, Annie. Thank you. So these 2 controllers are here, all set up. Now, let's change the visual for them and get some different representation, because now we have nothing. So what I'll get you guys to reference to is the Oculus controllers art file. So Oculus fortunately has given us these assets. So I'm just going to go to their developeroculus.com website, and I'll drop this link in the chat for you guys. Here, they provide controller art. So I'm going to, well, I already have it downloaded on my computer, so I'll just use that real quick. But this is where you would get it. There's also hand models, but they only give those in Maya formats. You'll have to convert those. Anyways, so I'm in my assets folder back here. I go to my file explorer. I'm going to find in my downloads folder my Oculus files. Here we go. Okay, so there's my Oculus controller art folder. It's a zip file. I unzipped it, and this is what I end up with. I'm going to click and drag that into my project, and it'll just take a second to bring in all those controller models. You can explicitly remove these if you'd like, but you can bring them in. Add many XR grabbable objects to the steering wheel that you can grab to steer, or make the whole wheel mesh grabbable with attach points. Kirsten, I'll show you momentarily, but we're not going to use grabbable objects today. We did do that in the VR bowling workshop I hosted a while back, which is also pretty fun. You want to check that out. The Vive, Chris, Rudy, it does support the Vive, but it's a bit of a workaround to make that happen. You have to go to Steam's their own GitHub and get the support from them. Valve Index and Vive, they're making their own system for the XR Interaction Toolkit. So it's unfortunately not included by default. But here we go. So now that I've brought those controller models in, there's the Oculus folder. I'm going to double click in there, and then I can see, yes, I will be, Nick. The Oculus Touch for Rift, for Quest and Rift S. There's also the Oculus Touch for Quest 2. I'm just going to go with this one because I'm using the first Quest. Double click in there, and you'll see an export folder which has the controller models. So there's the controller model L and R. I'm going to take the left one, make it a child of the left controller. Take the right one, make it a child of the right controller. And bam, I've got two controllers representing my hands in VR. There we go. So, there we have it. We've got our scene set up. We've got something representing our hands that aren't those lines. The XR Interaction Toolkit makes it so they don't have to make these scripts. It would take much longer to build. We are doing it from scratch today. I modded the karting micro game to work in VR, but the joystick input, I'm eager to see how to set up the steering wheel. Support hand tracking. The Quest does support hand tracking, yes, but you'll want to use the Oculus integration package to make hand tracking work for your Quest. It's a separate thing, whereas the XR Interaction Toolkit is cross-platform. So some of the functionalities aren't actually supported in this particular package. But we do also do hand tracking. We've covered that in the past as well. Yeah, you're welcome, Alan. So let's take a look at setup here. So we've got our XR rig. It's set up. It looks good. Let's take a look at setting up our assets from the asset store. So I went to the asset store and found some 3D models of cars. I'd recommend using either the dirt car model, it's free here, or the realistic model mobile car demo. Whichever you prefer, bring that into Unity and it'll look good. You can obviously get better car models. These are obviously they're free, so they're not the best, but it's up to you. So I've gone to the asset store. If you don't see the asset store reference, you go to Window and then enable the asset store window. Bam, here we are. I searched up the word car and I set this little pricing thing to free assets, the filter, I should say. And I find one of the car models. It's a quick look. I can view the full details and find more about it, but I saw that this had a steering wheel that's separate. I clicked on import, brought it into my project, and bam, there's a folder with that asset in there, into my scene. So let's take a look at putting that into my scene. So here, this folder, double click in there. I'm going to drag and drop this vehicles folder, the RM car drift. So I'm going to going in through these, and I'm looking for the prefab folder where there is my car. I'm going to drag and drop that into the scene like so. And you can see I have the EU version, which is right-handed. So I'm going to go to the left-handed version. There we go. So there's my car model. I'm just going to set its position to 0, 0, 0. I'm going to set the XR rig's position also to 0, 0, 0. So there it is. All right. So now let's take a look at floor level and eye level, or in this case, offset. So right now, this is considered the ground. When I hit play, you'll see, if I'm just going to split my game window here, you'll see how my controller stands up to my head level. Right? So it starts at the ground, and this is how much I am off the floor, as you can see. Right? As my headset gets higher and lower, this increases. But if I am, let's say, instead using, if I select the XR rig, you can see I can choose instead tracking origin mode from floor. I can select device, and then I can use the camera offset. So for example, if I set that to 0, and then I hit play, you can see now I'm starting where the camera is, and then I can go up and down from there. There we go. So now I can go up and down from there. But the idea is when I tracking origin type as device, it starts the user at that location. That's the benefit of that. Now, the reason we're doing that is because we want the user's head, regardless of where the user is sitting, we want their head to be positioned here. We don't want it to be relative to how tall they are. That would ruin the experience, right? So we want them to be exactly this tall. They can see the wheel. They're inside the vehicle. That's the idea. So that's what we're going to do with this. We are going to position the player in such a way that they are in the vehicle. So I take the XR rig, going to move it into the vehicle, basically, like so. And I can set the tracking origin type to device. And then I can set the camera offset to 0 and just move the person's head, as you can see here, into a position such that they are by the steering wheel. And if I was to set this to floor level, the user would be standing up above the car, whereas this one will start them inside the car. And you can alter this as you please. Can you position the XR rig with Control-Alt-Left? I guess you can. Yes, for sure. So if I was to focus in on my car, and I select the XR rig, Control-Alt-F, it would move it there. But the center of the car isn't actually where I want the player to be. We want them to be on the steering side, the driver's side, and up forward a little bit. But yeah, you can totally do that. That is a command that you can use. Just to make this easier, I'm actually going to just get rid of the windows, just so it's a bit see-through and a bit clearer. But if I want to make such changes to a prefab, I have to unpack it. So I right-click on this one. If it's blue, I can't really do as much as I want with it. So I have to right-click on it, unpack prefab completely because it has children object that are also prefabs. We'll leave that be. So I'm going to, once again, I'm going to select these windows. And I can make them a bit more clear. I'm just going to delete them for the purpose of this presentation. So it's a bit see-through. There we go. The wheel is a little dark. It's hard for me to see. So I'm going to select the interior here and just not receive shadows like that. Same with the wheels. I'm going to select the wheels and just remove the receive shadow property so I can see it well. There you go. I'm in the vehicle now. I can see everything. The receiving shadows property is disabled. So it's nice and bright. Let's save my scene here. Question. I'll have to answer some of those poll questions at the end for sure. We'll have a bit of a Q&A for sure. I'm going to hit play. And now I can see when I start, I am by the steering wheel. It's a little awkward a position, so I'm going to move my camera up and forward a little bit until I am comfortable. So one issue is that once you click outside of the game window, the system kind of stops with this one. So let me see if I move my VR rig up and forward a little bit. Let's see how it looks now. That's better. Now I feel like I'm in a good position. With that, I'm going to select this XR rig. In the transform, I'm just going to right click on that, copy component, hit play so that the changes get reverted when you leave play mode for testing. Right click on transform, paste component values, and then it looks like that's where I need to be to have a comfortable starting position. Play once again. There we go. I am properly positioned on the car. I grab one of my controllers. There we go. I can steer. Okay, now I've come up with a system for the steering wheel that's as simple as can be. There are ways to do this with more math and such, but those get quite convoluted, and I find that this method will work just as well, and is quite easy to implement, relatively speaking. So I've got this steering wheel object, and you can see how it's kind of angled a little bit. So it's not as easy as just saying to look at. And you can see these axes are telling me what it considers forward, which is blue, and that's the z-axis. Green is up, red is to the right for this object. And if I was to simply tell the wheel to look at the user's hand, it'd end up looking like this, and then that would ruin the way the steering wheel works. So what we need to do is tell this wheel to kind of just rotate along this axis, which is its own z-axis currently, its own z-axis. If I select the world z-axis, you can see how I have local and global here. You can see what the world considers up is there. What this object considers up is tilted. So we have to kind of compensate for these things. First, this steering wheel, I need this blue axis to point up or to the left or down along the steering wheel's face instead of perpendicular to it. That will make our lives easier. So I'm going to take the models, these 3 LODs, I'm going to unchild them so that they're their own thing independently. I'm going to select the steering wheel empty game object. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, like so, that it's pointing up along the steering wheel. And now that I have this game object pointing along, I'm going to select these 3, make them children of the steering wheel. Once again, so now I can rotate this object along its y-axis, which is great because now I can use a function kind of like a look at, and I'll show that in action. So with that done, let's take a look at how we can make this input a little bit nicer. So steering wheel is set up. Now, the steering wheel needs to look at the player's hand in a way. So this one will turn to face the player's hand if the player is touching over here. It will turn to face the player's hand if the player is touching here. That's the idea. So as the player moves, in real time, this thing will turn as well. Now, it's a little tricky. There's a few steps for this, so I'll show how to do this, and then we'll kind of move on to the rest of the things. So to implement something like that, what we can do is we can create a similar object. So I'm going to create an offset object. So this steering wheel is here. I'm going to create an empty game object, create empty. And I'm going to make this no longer a child of the steering wheel because I don't want this to rotate with the steering wheel. I'm going to call this one not steering wheel, but m_target parent, I should say. Target parent is going to be the parent of our target. I'm going to right click on that and create another empty game object. And this is going to be called our target. I don't know why I added the m_ in my game object name, but there we go. Okay, so the purpose of this thing is we have our steering wheel. It's going to rotate. We have this target object, which has the same rotation. Well, it has a parent that has the same rotation as our steering wheel. So what this target is going to do is this target object is going to match the player's hand position, wherever the player's touching, and then its y value here is going to be zeroed out so that it's always lined up with the steering wheel. So we're going to say, okay, it's touching here, the player's touching here, but the player isn't going to be perfectly on the wheel. The player may be up or down a little bit. So say something like that, but they're touching that region. So we're going to find where the player is touching, and then we're going to zero out the Y. So it's going to be perfectly like that along the axis of the steering wheel. And so when the steering wheel rotates to face it, it's looking at, or not necessarily looking at, but turned to face the target. That's kind of the concept we're going with here. It'll be a nice, easy way to implement the same ability. I'm just going to zero that out for now. So there we have it. That's kind of the trick to it. So I'm going to create a scripts folder, C# script folder, and I'll just, I meant to create the folder, not the actual script here. Delete that. Sorry. There we go. Create a folder for my scripts. I'm going to create a C# script like so, and I'll just call this my car, or I'll just call this my car controller. I'll create all the stuff in there, but for now we'll leave this be here. Let me open up this buddy here. And so what are we trying to do? Now, we're going to need the input for our car so that we can, accelerate and decelerate. We'll do that momentarily. Let's just get the steering wheel to work. So to get something like that going, what we'll want is our, we'll create a public transform for our steering wheel, for our actual wheel that we're going to make look at our target. I'm going to get a public transform for the offset target, so m underscore our target, and we'll we'll use that for now. So we got our target, we've got our steering wheel. Let's go ahead and go into our update loop, and basically we want to figure out the player's hand. So that is the target, but we want to create one more. What is the M for? Oh, I do it naturally, but this M underscore is Hungarian notation. It's used to define when a variable is a member variable. There's different coding practices when it comes to the way you script things. I like using M underscore. Whenever I'm in my code, I can also just say M underscore and see a list of all my variables. And it also, I declare a local variable without the M underscore. Isn't it being a member variable visible from the context? Well, I don't know. Maybe the script gets really large, and then it's a nice way to identify a member variable, and then I can also identify, let's say a static variable with S underscore, so there's things like that, and then I can understand constants with K underscore. That's just another method. But anyways, just another way of declaring variables. So I have my steering wheel, I have my target, and I'm going to get another variable for my hand. Tracking controller. So whichever the one is tracking. So I'm not going to make that public. I'll actually make that private. Now, for people who are new to Unity coding, this is the stuff that you'd want to take the coding class for. That comes ideally bundled with your C#, the XR course. Sometimes differentiating between variable naming schemes is just for programmer sanity. Yeah, that's also true. I have to drop for a work meeting, but would love to connect. Thanks for the session as well. Oh, take care, Joshua. All right, so I've got my M underscore hand here. This is going to be figured out by an Ontriggerenter function. So these Ontriggerenter functions are, these occur when something touches something else, essentially. Now I'm going to be butchering a little bit of explaining them in detail. Won't get really enough time to do that, but definitely something we dive deep into. So I'm going to just check if the other dot tag is equal to player. Won't get into all of the code, but just enough so that you can see how the steering wheel is working. And I'm going to say, once I have the tag, I'm going to say m_hand equals other.transform. And so I've got that going. I'm going to then say in my update loop, I'm going to have I'm going to say if there is a m_hand, what we're doing is saying m_target dot position equals m_hand dot position. And then I'm going to say m_target dot local position dot y is equal to 0. That's essentially what I want to do, but it won't let me do this directly. So what I want to do instead is say local position equals new vector 3 circle brackets m_hand, or sorry, its own self, comma, comma. So I'm going to set its position to its own x position, the y position to 0, like I showed earlier, its own z position. So the update loop, I'm going to say if there's a hand touching us, we're going to say, okay, take the target's position and set it to the hand's position. Visual Studio is great, yeah. And I'm going to set the target's local position to the same thing except 0 out the y value. Great. And then I'm going to tell the steering wheel to look at that target without rotating anything else. So I'm going to say vector 3 dir equals m_target dot position minus m_steering wheel dot position. This will let me know, basically this tells me where to point. It goes from the steering wheel towards the target. This vector tells me what's the direction in that regard. And then I want to figure out a quaternion, kind of converting that into a rotation. And that's going to equal quaternion dot look rotation in dir with transform dot up, so it knows relative to what axis. So yeah, this is getting into quite a bit of the nitty gritty stuff of it. And then I'll say m_steering wheel dot rotation equals like so. Oh, and by the way, I have an Ontriggerenter function that lets me know what the target hand is. But when an onTrigger exit occurs, we'll have our hand becoming null so that there is no reference. Now, this works great for one hand. I'll post the script for some other things. And if you're an experienced Unity developer, having this idea, this framework set up, you can definitely expand upon it. I'll give you the functional project later as well. But here we go. This is kind of the idea. We'll come back to this and look at it momentarily, but let's just see how we set it up in Unity, how we test it out. So I would do something like this. So I have is it free to download? Yes, Nick. Yes. So let's say I select the steering wheel. I'm going to just add a box collider just to keep it simple. I add a collider to it. You see this collider is massive. I'm just going to start its size off with 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. And I'm just going to shrink it down a little bit and increase its size. This thing here that I'm editing is called a collider. Defines the physical space an object takes up. So there we have the steering wheel. I'm going to make it into a trigger zone so that the Is_Trigger_Enter, Is_Trigger_Exit functions work. I'm going to reference the target in my target. I'm going to reference the steering wheel, which is in this case itself, into here. I'm going to save that. My controllers need to be tagged as player because that's what we're checking in the code, that the thing that touches the trigger is tagged as player. The controllers then also need their own colliders. Just going to go with mesh collider for now. And let's just go with box colliders for them to make this easy. There we go, box colliders. And I'm going to make those about 0.1 across the board. And they need rigid bodies so that this works. At least one of the colliding objects needs a rigid body for these things to work on time. Is it possible to get a recording or a doc of the same? Parna, the recording will be sent out in the end, but this link that you're on right now on this webpage will be where the recording plays. So you can bookmark the link. So there we go. Let's see this in action, see how that behaves. No worries. As you can see, the steering wheel is turning with my controller. Wonderful. All right, and so that is how you can make a steering wheel. Now, in the example project, I've gone over figuring out the angle that you've turned. And that code, let me show you, looks a little bit more like this. So we figured out, we've done the whole relationship where we've calculated, the changing of the steering wheel. One of the things I implemented here was that before you adjust the steering wheel's location, you unchild the steering wheel child, then rotate the steering wheel, and then rechild it so that it doesn't snap to looking at your hand. It will, make the steering wheel not a thing. Then you touch it, and then it will make that a child again. So you're not like touching it and then it snaps to your point of view. So there's this addressed here. There's a bunch of stuff that's fun. Figuring out how much you've steered. You calculate the angle and clamp it. So you would say, okay, what is the angle between where I started and where I am? You use the vector3.angle function between two vectors. It tells you the angle. Use the cross product to figure out, what is the perpendicular sort of angle for those two, the cross product result. Is it pointing towards you or away from you? Based on the cross product being positive or negative, we figure out that the angle is positive or negative. Either you've turned to the left or you turn to the right, which then you can use to figure out how much you want to adjust the steering wheels with, these kinds of things. All right, Felix, you have a wonderful rest of your day. So here is the code for that. I wish you the best luck on checking that out. We go over some wheel collider stuff as well to figure out how to address that. I'm going to quickly add wheel colliders to this car so you know how to implement that kind of thing. Can I talk about Quaternions a bit? Okay, Clemens, if you stick around for the Q&A, I'll definitely address it a little bit more. All right, so there we go. So that's the brunt of the code. And if you're an experienced Unity developer, definitely check it out some more. But what I've walked through here is how you set up the wheel to nicely follow your hand movement. Follows it really to a T. Using physics joints is brutal. It will not behave like you're trying to make it behave. I almost guarantee it, but it's a valiant effort to try. So let's take a look at how to set up the car. So what you would do is you would give the whole car, let's see this thing here, it's got a collider on it, so I'm going to just get rid of that. It's already got a collider. Let me remove this thing. Okay, so the car itself, I would want to give it a collider, so I'll just go with a box collider. So this thing is going to determine the physical space this car takes up. I'm going to edit this collider quite a bit. Let's go like that. Let's bring this up to the wheel, just above the wheels, actually. We don't want it to be touching the ground and preventing the wheels from colliding. So there we go. We size it up a little differently. So that's us just defining the physical bounds of the car. And then what we do is next we create a set of objects. Let me just quickly close this. We create a set. We create another bit of objects that will act as our wheel colliders. So I'm going to right click on this static drift one and create an empty game object, and that's going to be our wheel colliders, like so. Let me put that over there. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you want the player to move with the car, you would take this XR rig and make it a child of the car. Now, the reason you do that is now if you move a parent object, you can see that the player is moving with the vehicle. That's the purpose of that. Keep in mind, a better way to do it would be to instead have a function that simply tells the player, the XR rig, to move to this position in space. I'll leave that alone for now for the more experienced Unity devs to understand that you should have a target empty game object here. You should tell the player to move to that position via code and rotate its Y. The XR rig's Y rotation should match the car's Y rotation. That's what you want to do, because if the car is a little bumpy at times, you may not want the player to bump with the car. That's a very easy fix. If we have time at the end, we'll definitely talk more about that. All right, wheel colliders. I've made the XR rig a child of the player, the car, the wheel colliders. I would right click on this empty game object. Let's add a wheel collider to it. So yeah, create another empty game object as a child of that. I'm going to rename this to front left wheel collider, FL wheel collider. So I'll want it positioned over here. But what I would add to it is I would add a wheel collider component. So there's nice option there within Unity, wheel collider. Some properties to edit this with would be setting the mass to about 100, radius to 3.5. These are some values you can definitely mess with. Here are just some good values to initialize with that I've discovered over the years. A spring value, maybe 90,000, damper value of 9,000. I think that matches. Target position should be 1, it's original. And extreme extreme slip is 0.5. And I think the rest are fine the way they are. So those are some values you can use if you're making your wheel collider. They're pretty good to begin with. Once you've added this wheel collider, you'll want to position it at the position of the wheel there. So there you go. And kind of on the center of this wheel here. That kind of thing. And in this case, the radius might be a little difficult to see. Not showing me quite yet, but leave that be. But that's the idea. You want to put your wheel collider here in the center of that wheel. The wheel is acting really weird on this model now, but that's fine. So put my front wheel collider there. I would duplicate this several times and position this one on the other side, and that would be my front right. And actually, before I duplicate that several times, I would have my front right, front left. I would duplicate both of them together and then move them back together to be in the rear. That's how you would get your wheel collider set up. You'd want your actual car, you'd want it to have its own rigid body so that the car has some physics enabled. Now the car, as you can see my wheel colliders now, that they're visible, now the car has a rigid body. The car has a rigid body, and you'd want it to have a mass of about 1,500, because mass of one is like 1 kilogram. It's like 2.2 pounds. That's very light for a car. And the wheel collider's default properties are set up in such a way that they're expecting to resist upwards something that weighs over a ton. So the fact that the car would be 2 pounds would launch this car up into the air. So those are some properties you can mess with to set up your vehicle. In terms of input for your controllers, here is how you can access those as an example. So for those who are interested in the input mechanic here I am checking the read value of my controllers, and I'm seeing if the left controller which I get by creating a action-based controller component, a variable in my code, and then I can drag and drop the controller, the VR controllers on my Oculus touch controller models. I can drag and drop those parent object references. So if I go back into Unity for a second, you'll see that on our right-hand controller, left-hand controller, we had those XR controller scripts. We would drag these controllers into the reference. So you can see here on the main project here, the wheel collider. So if I go to the steering wheel on this one moment, there we go, steering controller. You'll see that I have left controller, right controller as public variables. I can drag and drop in the references I need so that I know what I'm talking about in that script. And the input system that they have with this is you can read a value from that controller. So you have that controller, say .activate actions or whatever action thing you want to use, activate action or select action and such, and then .action, .read value in this case, and different methods for reading it. And yeah, we'll send some resources to see the rest of the inputs, that kind of thing. Do the controller scripts use reference to Unity input system package? So these ones don't use the Unity engine.system. That they're kind of phasing that one out. They're opting for this new input action system, but you do need a reference to the XR Interaction Toolkit to be able to reference these action-based controllers. Evan, if that answers your question. But yeah, this is a pretty hefty project. I wanted to share with you guys. I know I can't really share all of the steps and show everything in the amount of time that I have, but I hope I jammed-packed as enough information as possible to show you guys a little bit of Unity dev. I even got into coding because I think quite a few of you were interested in that, but hopefully I haven't made Kyle pull his hair out based on how long it took. Sorry, guys. All right, Kyle, it's back to you guys, and I'll try and stick around for some Q&A right after his presentation.
Ozzy, I would never pull my hair out when you're working, man. Come on, it's always a pleasure to have you. We really appreciate you joining. We're going to have you back on here in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
Reminder to everyone before I reshare my screen here, we really flew through a lot of this content today. I wasn't expecting that we were going to get into some of the coding stuff, but I'm glad that we were, as it appeared that a few of you were asking for it. For the beginners in the room, please don't stress about the stuff that you saw today with respect to the coding. In all of our programs, we do start from the very basics. This is a good example of how even simple concepts using a no-code asset package can get complex when you try to do unique things. So let me share my screen here. Just give me 1 second to get that up and running. Once again, thank you to Ozzy. Really, really cool to see all kinds of projects that you come up with for these workshops. I know you and I have done escape rooms and VR bowling and all of that type of fun stuff in the past. And this one was awesome, just like all of them. I always learn something new and really appreciate you coming out and taking the time to teach us some things. I was good for most of the part, but like I believe it was Nick, the Quaternions and Clements and everybody else, that's where I was lost too, man. So don't worry about that too much. Last thing before I move on, again, I'm going to drop in a poll in the polls tab. This one really helps us out a lot. Can you please let us know, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this workshop? So please navigate over there, have a look, add your vote. This one helps us out a lot, so please do let us know. Okay, moving on. If you've enjoyed hearing this, I was going to say introductory demo, but it didn't quite pan out that way. Regardless, if you've enjoyed learning with us and with Ozzy today, we would love to have you or your team join our programs. No matter who you are, what your current skill set is, we can definitely help. Whether you're looking to change careers, start a business, bring this technology back to work, or upskill together as a team, we would be happy to connect with you to see if your goals align with the programs we offer. On screen are a few of the students who have studied with us recently or in the past that have gone on to do incredible things in this space and make waves in the industry. If I'm not mistaken, I actually saw Mike Oakes in the back. So hi, Mike, if you're still here, great to see you again. Hope you're doing well. Again, these are our main courses here at CircuitStream that the previous people who I just showed on screen and most of our students study with us. On the left, the XR Development with Unity course is our beginner-friendly part-time program designed to teach the fundamental skill sets and best practices for prototyping this type of content in Unity. Our next cohort gets started on April the 27th, and the tuition fee is there on screen at $3,950. That is American. We normally get asked this at our workshops. And then on the XR Project Accelerator course on the right, our next cohort is set to get started on May the 24th, and the tuition fee there is $44.50. More on that one in a second. Now, looking into the 10-week course specifically, I did actually see a few folks in the audience who are grads, currently started, or are scheduled to begin with us in April. So it's great to see everybody in attendance again today. But on this course specifically, this is the one that we would recommend to most beginners. It's designed to teach you how to build your own VR or AR experiences from scratch and how to prototype. Teaches you the fundamentals of coding, and it's all taught live and online with instructors just like Ozzy. It includes 40 hours of education taught over 10 weeks, and built into those 40 hours are 10 one-on-one appointments that you're welcome to use however you would like. Most of our students coming into this program would like help bringing their very own project idea to life, but don't worry if you don't have one. We can certainly help you with whatever it is that you need help with. Now, we do also have 2 beginner-friendly short courses that are also both live and online and part-time as well. The C# Scripting Fundamentals course is a 3-week program that includes 9 hours of training over that span, and it's really, really great to take leading into the 10-week class as either a prep course, or if you've seen this content before but would like a refresher, it's great to take as a refresher course. As the name suggests, we dive into the fundamentals of the C# language and how to go about using Visual Studio, which is what Ozzy was using today, to create scripts in Unity, which is, as you saw, an essential part of the development process. That particular C# course, the next cohort gets started on the 15th of March, and we've got another one starting on the 5th of April. So if you are planning on joining the 10-week course in April, you do have the option to do either of these cohorts as part of our bundled package, which I will speak about in just a minute here. The Intro to XR Design short course is the other beginner-friendly program that we've got. This one can be taken as a standalone course or in conjunction with our other programs. I said this off the top, but we really believe that it's essential for XR designers, XR artists, 3D modelers, whoever you are, and however you want to complement these types of projects. We believe it's important for you to have, at the very least, a basic skill set in developing this content, not just designing it. But this is a great program for designers looking to transition their existing 2D skill set to the XR world. It's a 5-week program that teaches the fundamentals of visual design, sound design, special effects, technological limitations, and human factors in XR tech and the mixed reality spectrum, and so on. This is also great for the developers in the room who would like to have that design perspective and leverage their skill set in a way that will make them a more holistic complement to these programs. We did have a design course that actually just started on Monday of this week. We haven't quite yet confirmed when our next cohort will get started, but it's looking like it'll be early to mid-May this summer. Now, for the design course, the C# course, and the 10-week XR Development with Unity course, they're all beginner-friendly. So please, beginners, have no fear. Now, for the more intermediate or advanced folks in the rooms, if these 3 previously mentioned programs are too beginner for you or not what you're looking for, we do have another course that's more suitable for you. And of course, it's the XR Project Accelerator program. This course is unique in that it continues to teach you more advanced best practices in subjects like AR and VR interaction development, things like optimization, publishing, rendering, and that type of thing. But the real star of the show in this course is that you can take a new idea or an existing portfolio project and work with us to really take it to the next level, to the point where if you wanted to commercialize your app, build a business around it, if that was your desire, we would love to help you get started on that path. And we do this mainly by ramping up the amount of one-to-one time that you get with an expert. So in addition to the weekly lessons, we actually meet with you for 2 hours every week on top of those lessons to help you work on that project. Now, for all of these courses, I've gone over 4 at this point. We do offer payment plans as well. So for any of our courses, if you'd like to spread the costs out over an extended period of time, definitely please don't please don't hesitate to take advantage of one of these. I did mention a bundle too. We really believe that taking a holistic approach to education is a great way to learn new skills. So we've actually created 2 different bundle options that any new student is welcome to take advantage of. The best part about this bundle here in particular that I like is it's the same price, as the 10-week course on its own. So for any new student signing up into our VR starter pack, we'll also register you into the C# scripting course alongside the XR development with Unity program, and we'll send you a new Oculus Quest 2 as long as you are in a place that Oculus can ship to. And we'll do this all as part of the registration package. We've also created the VR Starter Pack Plus, and this is the exact same as the starter pack, but you're also getting the design course. So this would be 3 courses as well as the headset. Now, it would be fair to offer a starter pack without also offering an accelerator pack. So we've created the exact same structure here. So we've got the accelerator pack, where in this case, you would get the refresher course in the form of the C# program, the accelerator course, and the headset. And then we've also created that same package, but with the design course at 50% off. On screen here, you can see our admissions team. Obviously, you've already met me. I've been your host for today, but my counterpart, Steph, who is in the audience today as well, also supports admissions and these educational programs. We operate a little bit differently than other companies in that we're extremely involved in the before, the during, and after your registration process. We're here to help answer any questions that you might have about financials, your learning or project goals, anything technical for the most part about Unity or a specific VR and AR device that you want to work with, and so on. This is a free service that we offer, so please definitely don't hesitate to get in touch with either of us if you would like to chat. You can reach out to us directly via the website or for a call or email if you've already heard from one of us in the past. So in the meantime, if you're looking to learn more but you're not quite ready to talk to Steph or I, feel free to head over to the learning page on our website to read about each of these courses individually, to download a syllabus, to read some student stories and see some project examples, or to submit an application to enroll into any of our programs. Amazing. Okay, so that's going to wrap up the presentation for today. But at this point, I would like to invite Ozzy back on stage. We're going to go through all of the questions that we didn't get to throughout the presentation. So if you do have questions, anything about our courses, a headset, what you saw today, Unity, feel free to toss them into the questions tab, and we will do our best to get through as many of them as we can. The only thing I will say is we've only got about 10, 15 more minutes here before we run out of recording time. So what I would ask that you do for folks in the audience, in the questions tab, you can actually upvote questions that you would like us to answer, and we're going to organize them by most upvoted. So Ozzy, great to see you again. Thanks for coming back here. Let's see what we've got here. I'm going to order by upvotes.
I tried to answer some during your...
Oh, you did? Okay, great. You know what? There was actually, I think it was Clemens, if I'm not mistaken. Can you talk about the Quaternions and sort of how a beginner might consider what these are and how they can use them?
Right. So in Unity, there's typically 2 ways to refer to the angle of an object, the rotation and the Euler angle of the object. I know it's spelled EU, but it's pronounced Oi. We get over it. So the Quaternion has the XYZ rotation, and there's a hidden W value that helps you identify the orientation. Because when it comes to Quaternion, it's like you have your hand here, you move this, you rotate forward, you rotate side, and then you rotate back, and now all of a sudden your hand is in a different side, right? You'd imagine it being like this if you're using proper angles, but this is where your whole gimbal issue occurs, where you're trying to revert back to the 90 degrees that you've turned, these kinds of things. So Quaternions give you a little bit more control for your ending rotation. Now, in the example we did in the workshop, you have this function called look at. So if this is my z-axis, this is where I'm facing, and this is where I'm looking to the left, this is my up position. If I told it to look at something, it would go like this, right? And it might, the issue is it might turn like this because you don't have as much control over how it's turning. So these are the kind of things you have to kind of get around when you're looking at objects, when you're trying to handle rotations. So you use these other mechanisms like Quaternion.look rotation, and you ignore certain axes. So Quaternion.look rotation can allow you to say, okay, you know, look at that object, but only rotate on your y-axis or only rotate on your z-axis. It allows you to have that finer control over your Quaternions. Now you can get real in-depth to Quaternions, and I'm sure we can provide some more resources for that in the email. I'll send you guys a really good article that'll walk through it, but that's the essential concept.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate that, Ozzy.
Follow up with some questions.
Melissa, I just saw your message there. Yeah, absolutely. Let me just make a note here really quick on our end internally. I'd be happy to connect with you if my colleague hasn't already reached out. I can definitely reach out to you. You know what? Let's just do this.
Sure. Evan has a question. There are rotational dampeners. Are there rotational dampeners or filters to help assist VR motion sickness? Now, Evan, if you're using forces to move an object in terms of rotation, there is a property within the physics object, the rigid body, called angular drag. So you want to work, if you want to worry about like slowing down the rotation of an object when it's spinning, you would increase the angular drag, and then when you want it to stop, you would decrease it. These kinds of things. If you want to if you really want to improve your fight against motion sickness, you should think about using like a fading out when you do a snap turn, fade it back in, or a vignette effect when you start doing something like snap turn. You bring in a vignette snap and then remove it. Those kinds of that technique is really helpful combating motion sickness. Just don't want to be overdoing it, of course. In a car racing game, it's a great example to combat motion sickness because there is this giant frame of reference. In real life, you have your nose. You don't think about it, but your nose is responsible for combating motion sickness. As you look around, you have a reference point. In VR, you don't have a nose. So your environment, if you have something static, like you're in a car, then that's your replacement for your nose, those kinds of things.
Very cool, Ozzy. Very, very cool. I'm going to start a live question here. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I just want to get your thoughts, Ozzy, because everybody that Steph and I speak to and folks who are, there was a lot of people who identified as sort of having a 0 out of 10 skill set in Unity coming into today. How would you approach learning coding at the beginning? Like if you were relearning C# for the first time today, how would you approach it? What would you focus on? Just curious to hear what your thoughts on how a beginner can get started.
Personally, I loved diving into it really quick, and it did slow me down a little bit, but I would take a look at learning some simple C#, but along the way implementing that stuff in Unity. So I would think of a very small project that I want to work on, and it doesn't even have to be VR necessarily, but something small, and then figure out all I need to do to make that thing happen, and then make my next project a little bit bigger. Figure out what I need to add to the features I already know to make that happen. And through your research, you're just researching like, oh, okay, I just need to figure out how to move a character left and right to do this little puzzle game that I've made or whatnot, and just add these little features. Brackeys is great. Valum is great for VR stuff as well. So those are some great people to check out for tutorials.
Awesome.
But Brackeys is a good start for sure.
Awesome. We also, Dayon, who I was going to say, right on cue. So Dayon's our head of marketing in the chat here. We also just recently posted a really in-depth guide on how to get started. So it's a blog post. So on our website, under the blogs tab, you will be able to see that. We've done workshops on this stuff as well. And then, of course, we have the 3-week course as well. So I just wanted to call that out. Really quick, I'm going to start a live answer here. So Nick, yes, there is a way to rewatch the escape room workshop. On our website, there is an on-demand section under the workshops tab. And then from there, just like signing up for today, you just submit a form and you'll get emailed the link, the assets, and everything else. We are also on YouTube, so a lot of our new workshops we're uploading there as well. So if you want to subscribe to the channel, we can, absolutely have that there as well.
Okay, I just wanted to answer a quick question from Nick here about not having the proper module installed. So if I was to select, if I was to just share my screen here real quick, it's not letting me share. No, dang it. Okay, so let me show the Unity Hub off. Let me come right back here. Damn it. No.
The recording doesn't want to let you share your screen?
It's saying not responding for me. I think my browser is overrun. But if for the benefit of what I'm trying to do is, if you go to the Unity Hub and you click on installs on the left section there, and then you see your version of Unity, in that version, you'll see 3 dots at the top right. If you click on those 3 dots, you'll see add modules. When you press add modules, Visual Studio is the top option. Just click on that and hit next and go through the installation. You don't have to get the whole Unity thing all over again. I'm going to try and rejoin the meeting. I'll be right back.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Let's see what kind of other questions I can answer that are here while Ozzy is trying to reconnect. So we just answered Nick's. Is there anything in the chat, anything specifically, guys, that you want me to answer while we're waiting on Ozzy? I think most of the technical stuff I'll leave to him, but anything with respect to resources we share, recordings on our YouTube channel, anything about our courses, what to expect, anything like that? How long have I worked in Unity? Nick, that's a great question. So I've done our beginner course, and that's it. So I handle most of our educational support stuff, and I do some consulting there. But I myself am not a developer. Can we link the YouTube channel? Yes, absolutely. I will do that. Dan is back, so go ahead.
Nick.
Sorry, Ozzy is back.
About 14 years, Nick.
Wow, there you go. I'm actually going to start this live answer right now. Kristen had a question. She just put it back in the chat. So I'm going to start the live answer. Ozzy, what do you think about this one here? So it's not sure if you'll cover it in this session, which we didn't clearly. But if you want to be able to have the user get into and out of the car, is that functionality simple enough, or does that really change the complexity of what we were doing today?
So it would be more like transformed opposition plus equals vector3.right or vector3.left in our case. That'd be one thing you would do, one line of code to move the player out, and then xrrig.parent equals null, so that the car is no longer a parent of that object of the xrrig, and they're independent now. So it'd be 2 lines of code. You just position them at the right spot, like make a separate code that says, okay, player transform.position plus equals vector3.left, move them, player.parent equals null, and then the script for driving dot enabled equals false. So 3 lines of code get you out of the car.
Well, there you go. Just like that. Okay, team, we have time for, let's say, one more question. Ozzy, is there anything that catches your eye, or chat? Is there anything burning that we haven't addressed for you that we can? Let's give it one more minute here. One more question. Anything on your end, Ozzy?
I'll look through some of the
Let's have a look.
questions. I think a lot of them have largely been answered.
I think so as well.
Oh, what's the chat coming in with?
Oh, Kristen has an
Stationary
add-on
versus
for
room
her
scale.
question. Stationary
Is
versus room
stationary.
scale XR rig in her scenario, getting into and out of the car.
Oh, I always prefer room scale XR just because it causes less motion sickness, but it definitely depends on the situation. Stationary, I would typically use for 360 videos, 360 photos. I wouldn't really use stationary for much else. So if that's like a preference question, that's what I would mean, but I'm not sure
Awesome.
what you refer to, but you're talking
Kristen's
about,
got it.
like if you're in the car and you're stationary, you can't like move at all. Yeah, you could do that. I always find that makes the motion sickness aspect worse, though. You got to be careful with that.
The more you know. Okay, Ozzy, let's wrap it up there. We're well over our 90 minutes estimated allotment of time here today. That's okay. It happens. But everyone who made it this far in the audience, thank you so much for sticking it out till the end. Really glad. Hope you enjoyed the content today. Just want to say thank you for coming. Hopefully we'll see you at the next one. I think we've got a workshop happening this time next week as well. So feel free to check that one out. Feel free to get in touch with any of us. But above all, have a great rest of the day. Stay safe, and hope to see you again. Thanks so much, everybody.
All right, take care, everyone. Thanks for coming.